She said it like she was ordering a latte. Fire her once she finishes the module. I was in the elevator, holding 2 coffees, one for me, one for the same woman who just sentenced my career to death. Miranda, our sleek new COO who spoke in bullet points and blinked like emotion was a bug in her firmware. My hand didn't shake. Not yet. But the coffee rippled, tiny waves of caffeine panic. They didn't know I was there. Ethan from DevOps had wedged himself between me and the button panel, yammering on about Kubernetes clusters, probably just to mask the silence. Miranda was on the phone on speaker, of course, because why wouldn't a corporate sociopath out herself in Dolby Surround? She's good, but not indispensable. Get what you need out of her, then cut. Not let her go. Not end the contract. Cut, like fat from steak. The elevator chimed for 19. She stepped out, heels clicking like gunshots. I stepped out too, dead silent, dead calm, and I smiled, because I'd heard what I wasn't supposed to. And now I had teeth. By the time I reached my desk, I already had the plan, not revenge, not yet, just preservation. I closed Slack. I pulled up the GitHub repo. My fingerprints were all over it, months of commits, comments, pull requests with code so clean it could pass FDA inspection. The rewrite module was the only thing standing between their creaky, legacy backend and total infrastructure collapse. Without it, their flagship app, the one they pitched to the board last month as AI integrated and future-proof, would choke on its own calls like a kid trying to swallow marbles. I had 2 options: finish it for them and die quietly, or finish it for me. I did what any woman does when she's got a ticking time bomb on her badge and a CEO breathing down her neck from 3 states away. I forked the damn thing. New private repo. Encrypted backups. Version controlled like the Ark of the Covenant. But here's the twist. I didn't just copy my code. I gutted it, rewrote the data layer from scratch. Streamlined the query engine so tight it made their original look like it was written in crayon. Then I built something new, Layer 7 upgrade protocol. It was the kind of thing we joked about in theory, but never had clearance to implement. Too unstable, too powerful, too mine, and then, just to see if fate had a sense of humor, I left one line in the original repo. One single breadcrumb, / Abigail was here. No timestamp, no function, just a ghost in the code. The next morning, Miranda called an urgent sync. She wanted to see my progress. Walk me through it, she said, sipping the coffee I brought her like I hadn't heard her plan my execution in surround sound. I did. I walked her through a half version. One that technically worked. One that she thought she could steal. Her eyes narrowed. That's it? I smiled. That's module 1. She smirked. Good, we'll take it from here. They thought I'd just handed them gold. What I gave them was a live grenade, pin almost out. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't try to sleep. I sat in my apartment, still in work clothes, boots unlaced, mascara smudged like war paint, watching the repo heat map blink like a slow pulse. Every few minutes, I'd refresh it. Nothing. Just their silence pretending to be strategy. They didn't push. They didn't comment. They didn't ask questions. Because they thought I was done. Disposable, outplayed. But what Miranda didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd already built the entire upgrade protocol inside a sandboxed environment on my personal drive, under a dummy shell project called Yoga Metrics AI. Just in case someone ever did try to outfox me. And now I was going to weaponize it. I pulled out the burner phone I kept for side clients. It buzzed constantly, startups begging for devs who could write efficient code without needing a VC's permission. I scrolled through 3 unread messages from a fintech CTO in Austin and a logistics bro from somewhere with too many vowels in the name. And then I saw it. A ping from Jared. Jared Haverson, my former boss. The only person who ever fought for me in a boardroom. We hadn't spoken since he'd been pushed out in a mutual separation that looked a lot like a corporate firing squad. But his message, it was simple. Still sharp, Abigail. I've got something cooking. I didn't reply. I didn't need to yet, but my hands were already flying over the keyboard. Because suddenly the elevator conversation wasn't a betrayal, it was a deadline. The next morning, they deployed my final module into staging. Ethan posted in Slack, testing live on Sandbox, looks stable. Someone dropped a balloon emoji. I watched the logs in real time. It worked. For the first 6 minutes. Then the system started looping recursive calls, slightly off, subtle enough to pass casual QA. But to anyone watching closely, it was a symphony of soft failure. Latency went up. Memory bloat crept in. APIs slowed by fractions of seconds. They wouldn't see it today or even tomorrow. But in a week, it would implode, and no one would know why. Meanwhile, I uploaded my version of the protocol to my private repo, clean, elegant, and blisteringly fast, and I wrote a deployment wrapper that could plug into any enterprise architecture without so much as a handshake. At 3:24 p.m., Miranda sent a mass email. "Thanks, team. We've successfully deployed the new module. Big win for the quarter." I stared at it, then I clicked forward to Jared. Subject: something's cooking. Attachment: Valkyrie 7 XAI in the body. I wrote only 4 words: "Want your company back." 2 minutes later, "Meet me. Tonight." I did. He was already waiting when I got to the rooftop bar, same smug leather jacket, same "I've been exiled, but I'm still 6 moves ahead" grin. He raised a glass. "To corporate ghosts," he said. I clinked his glass. "Let's haunt them." The rooftop was half empty, just enough anonymity for betrayal to taste like bourbon. Jared looked older. Not tired, not bitter, sharpened. Like exile had carved him down to blade. "Tell me it's not just revenge," he said, sipping slow, eyes scanning the skyline like he owned half the zip codes. "It's leverage," I replied. "Revenge is dessert." I slid my laptop across the table. No passwords, no NDA, just the raw build, mine. Valkyrie 7X in all its ruthless, optimized glory. A codebase so lean it practically purred. I didn't explain how it worked. I didn't need to. He read 3 lines and whistled. "Jesus, Abigail, you built a nuclear backend." I shrugged. "We're gonna fire me for microwave." "So I built a bomb." He laughed, but there was edge in it. "You sure you're ready for this?" I stared into my drink like it owed me rent. "They stole your company. They're about to screw me. You're asking the wrong question." Jared leaned in. "Then let's make it public." "No," I said. "Not yet. They need to feel safe first. Let them pitch my broken module to the board. Let Miranda smile for her quarterly bonus photo." Then he raised a brow. "You leak it." "No," I said again. "I sell it." And that's when I told him. About the VC call I'd scheduled with a boutique firm out of Seattle. About how Valkyrie wasn't just code. It was an enterprise-ready plug-and-play upgrade suite with predictive diagnostics, automated error handling, and a latency index so low it made AWS blush. He blinked. "You mean to tell me," he said slowly, "you built a startup inside the skeleton of your employer's backend?" I smiled. "I'm just a girl, standing in front of capitalism, asking it to die." He threw his head back and howled. But I wasn't laughing. Because while we toasted to corporate downfall, Ethan from DevOps was on the 23rd floor trying to explain to QA why their staging logs looked like spaghetti dipped in motor oil. Their system was groaning. Not failing, yet, just aging in dog years every time someone queried the user schema. And Miranda? Oh, she was doing a LinkedIn Live about women in tech leadership, scaling without apology. I watched the clip later. She was wearing the blazer I complimented 2 weeks ago. She called herself a builder of talent. She didn't even mention my name. Perfect. I gave her 1 more day. Then I sent an email, not to her. To the lead engineer at SableNet, their direct competitor. Subject line: performance gains you won't believe. No pitch deck. Just a link, a demo, a whisper. This is what they're hiding. And I knew within 48 hours, someone at the C-level would lose bladder control in a boardroom. Because SableNet, they didn't just want better code. They wanted blood. Friday morning hit like a brass knuckle to the jaw. I walked into the office just as the fire started, figuratively. From the way Ethan was sweating through his branded fleece, it might as well have been literal. "Abigail," he hissed, jogging up beside me, laptop clutched like a defibrillator. "Something's wrong with the staging environment. We've got cascading timeouts, and the Jenkins jobs are looping dependencies." I didn't even blink. "Have you tried turning it off and crying?" He didn't laugh. He looked scared. "Miranda's pulling us into a war room in 5. They think it's a security issue." Of course they did. Because God forbid they consider the possibility that the module they'd fast-tracked, my final delivery, was sabotaging them from the inside like a well-dressed parasite. I rode the elevator up with Ethan and an intern whose badge still had the activation sticker on it. He smelled like energy drinks and crushed dreams. Miranda was already pacing in conference room B when we entered, sleeves rolled, jaw clenched like she'd just eaten glass and couldn't admit it tasted bad. "Staging is bricked," she said flatly. "We've got system alerts tied to half the API endpoints. Who touched what?" All eyes swiveled toward me. I leaned back in my chair, one leg crossed over the other like I was watching a telenovela. I delivered what was requested, I said. If the system's choking, maybe it's allergic to incompetence. That earned a nervous snort from Ethan. Miranda didn't flinch. Need a rollback. Cool, I said, tapping on my laptop. To what version? Silence, because the rollback plan, that was supposed to be automated by the same module. You know, the one I'd intentionally designed to trap them in a recursive update cycle after deployment. You mean to tell me, I said slowly, savoring the words like molasses, that you pushed my code live with no backup? She knew. Right then. Her face didn't change, but something behind her eyes blinked and died. I want your laptop, she said. I handed her the decoy, the sanitized one. The laptop I used for daily sprints and Slack and memes about JavaScript hell. The one that wasn't running Valkyrie's real brain. Check it, I said, arms wide. Maybe it'll tell you why you shouldn't fire the person who built your architecture with duct tape and divine rage. Miranda slammed the laptop shut. Get out, she growled. I stood, but not before saying, loud enough for every wide-eyed engineer in the room to hear, funny how your confidence scales faster than your infrastructure. I didn't go home. I went straight to Sable Net. They met me in a WeWork suite overlooking the city, where the furniture was all Scandinavian pretension and the coffee tasted like ambition. 3 execs. 1 lawyer. 1 stunned-looking product lead who nearly dropped his tablet when I ran the Valkyrie demo on a sandbox in under 4.2 seconds. Jesus, he whispered. Is this built on their infrastructure? Nope, I said, built beside it, watched it rot, then left it to die. They asked for terms. I gave them license rights, a 6-month exclusive window, and one hell of a clause. No part of this code may be sold, shared, or referenced by any current or former employee of Skylab Systems, Inc. That last part, that was a kill shot, because Miranda wasn't just failing. She was legally locked out of my resurrection. And the moment Sable Net pushed Valkyrie into production, which would be very soon, they'd crush Skylab's platform with better speed, better data sync, and predictive load balancing that made their engineers look like toddlers with crayons. I left the meeting with a check. 7 figures, half wired immediately, the other half when the kill switch triggered, and all I could think, walking back to my car with sunlight on my face and hell in my hands, was, they fired me once I finished the module. But they never asked what I was building after. 3 days later, Skylab's system collapsed like a drunk trying to ice skate. Red alerts pinged across internal dashboards. CPU maxed out. Data syncs failed mid-transaction. Half their customer portals spat out 504 errors. By noon, support lines were jammed, and Reddit had a fresh post titled Skylab, Cloud Solution or Digital Dumpster Fire. I sat at a cafe 2 blocks away from their HQ, sipping an oat milk latte and watching their implosion unfold in real time via Hacker News threads and linked in buzzwords masquerading as damage control. Miranda hadn't made a statement yet. That told me one thing: they had no idea where the failure came from, which made what happened next even sweeter. Around 3:14 p.m., Jared texted, Miranda just went full Chernobyl in a boardroom. Sources say she accused half the dev team of corporate sabotage. Tell her she's warm, I replied, because this was never just about the code. It was about control. They'd built an empire on top of me, took my ideas, rewrote the credits, smiled for investors with my architecture holding their shaky promises together. And now, they were drowning in their own arrogance. But the true twist didn't come until 6:43 p.m. I was walking home when my phone buzzed. Unknown number, I answered, a breath. Then a voice, Abigail, it's Lydia, Miranda's assistant, the one who used to sneak me the good coffee pods. The one everyone ignored because she was just ops. Miranda's been looking for your private repo. He's asking IT to break into your user files. I paused. Let the wind blow over me like a warning. She can't, I said. She's trying, Lydia whispered. But here's the thing, I think she's working with someone outside. I saw her meeting with a guy in a black Range Rover. I think he's from Neon Catalyst. My stomach dropped. Neon Catalyst. The same third-party dev shop that tried to acquire Jared's old product before Skylab swooped in. Been sniffing around Valkyrie's capabilities ever since I demoed a light version at that DevCon in Santa Clara last year. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Lydia hesitated, then, because she told IT to wipe your company drive. All of it, emails, Slack threads, Jira, like you never existed. And if she finds out I warned you, I'm gone too. I stood in the middle of the street, heart thudding like a drumline. She wasn't just trying to fire me retroactively. She was trying to erase me, rewriting history one purge at a time. Send me her laptop's device ID, I said, now. 5 minutes later, I was home, VP NetIn, running silent diagnostics through a backdoor script I'd written a year ago. It was a harmless watchdog app disguised as a font cache cleaner. Miranda had it on her machine. Everyone did, and I'd never uninstalled it. Within 30 minutes, I had access to her keystroke logs, her clipboard history, and a ghost image of her downloads folder. One file stood out. V7 integration notes docx. I opened it, and there it was, my code, my comments, my variable names, rewritten into a fake development log she was trying to sell as her own IP to Neon Catalyst. She'd taken my code, buried the original timestamps, and was about to pitch it as an independent innovation. I stared at the screen, my pulse like thunder. You want a war, Miranda? You should have burned the whole repo. Because now I was going to rewrite your ending. I didn't eat. I didn't blink. I just moved. My fingers flew across the keyboard like they had a vendetta of their own. First, I cloned her fake devlog and hashed every page through a timestamp validator using metadata from my original commits, some of which were still logged in remote CI/CD job history Skylab never scrubbed. Then I ran a diff script. The result, over 87% match between her independent V7 notes and my Valkyrie build, down to the structure of error handlers and the same stupid typo I'd left in a comment on purpose, //route handler. With the E, she hadn't even caught it. That's the level of thief I was up against. A corporate barnacle, dressed in silk and suffocating in her own ego. So I packaged everything. Side-by-side comparisons, Jenkins log screenshots, repo history from my private Git, Slack exports from the day she announced the deployment, a 43-second screen recording of Miranda copying my code files, file name by file name, onto a flash drive at 1:14 a.m. Caught by my ghost tracker, running on her machine like a silent confession. I compressed it all into a folder labeled IP theft final payload, then I opened a clean email draft. To Skylab's board, CC, Jared, BCC, 3 journalists from Tech Pulse, Breakstack, and 1 deliciously savage freelancer from Fast Company who once wrote an exposé on a CEO's burner Tinder account. Subject, your COO is about to sell stolen code to your competitor, receipts attached. I hovered over send, paused, and attached a final file, a photo. It was Miranda's whiteboard from 3 weeks ago. She'd written Q4 leverage equals optimize plus replace. Below it, circled in red, Abigail equals flight risk. I hit send. 10 minutes later, my phone rang, not one of the numbers I recognized. Private, I answered. There was a pause, breathing. Then, you vindictive little bitch, Miranda. I smiled and leaned back in my chair like I was sunbathing in her unraveling. Do you enjoy the Range Rover ride? I said. Or did he make you sit in the back like the help? You have no idea what you've done, she hissed. Oh, I know exactly what I've done, I said. I turned your plagiarism into performance art. She launched into a flurry of threats, lawsuits, blacklists, vague allusions to executive-level blowback. I let her talk, let her drown. Then I interrupted, cool and slow. You ever wonder why I called it Valkyrie? Silence, because she doesn't just survive the battlefield. She picks who gets to die on it. Click. An hour later, Jared texted me a screenshot. It was a Slack message from Skylab's legal team. COO Miranda Pierce placed on immediate administrative leave pending investigation into internal IP breach. 2 hours after that, Tech Pulse ran with the story. Exclusive. COO caught attempting to sell stolen AI module. Startup implodes in wake of scandal. By midnight, Skylab's stock price had hemorrhaged 22%. Twitter was calling her hash copy-paste queen. Someone photoshopped her face onto a raccoon holding a USB stick. And me? I was sitting on my fire escape, barefoot, sipping whiskey, watching the city breathe like it owed me. She tried to erase me. Now she was being edited out in real time by shareholders, by media, by the same devs she condescended to during stand-ups. But the final move, that was still coming, because Neon Catalyst hadn't replied yet, and when they did, I'd be the one holding their future hostage. It came at 10:42 the next morning, an email so sterile, so carefully lawyered, it practically smelled like bleach. Subject: Engagement Inquiry Valkyrie Protocol Licensing Terms from Legal at Revengestio. They weren't denying it. They weren't pretending ignorance. They were pivoting. They wanted to negotiate. That's how I knew I had them by the throat. Neon Catalyst had two choices. Admit they'd attempted to purchase stolen intellectual property from a disgraced exec, or buy the real deal from the woman they tried to cut out of her own story. So I played it colder than frostbite. I responded with a single sentence. My lawyers will forward the commercial licensing terms under Valkyrie Technologies, LLC. I'd filed the LLC that morning, registered it in Delaware with Jared as silent partner. We had a logo, a bank account, a custom domain, and a product demo that ran smoother than their entire dev stack. I even had a pitch deck ready. Minimalist, brutal, real. What Skylab failed to launch, we evolved. Not legacy code, just legacy thinking. But what I didn't expect, what hit me sideways like a rogue wave, was Miranda's final card. That evening, Lydia called again. This time, whispering through what sounded like wind. She's here. In the building, she never left. HR escorted her out, but she's in a client's suite. I think she's meeting with. The line went dead. I stared at my screen. The hair on my arms prickled. Then I checked my email. New message from Miranda's personal Gmail. Subject: You want war. Let's go nuclear. Attachment: Skylab patent APP final PDF. She was trying to file a patent on Valkyrie. She changed just enough variables. Swapped out the framework version. Added fluff about proprietary optimization. But the skeleton, the soul, mine. I called Jared. She's going scorched earth, I said. He didn't miss a beat. Then we bury her under the ashes. We triggered the failsafe. A feature I'd built into Valkyrie's demo environments. A timed logic bomb. Not malicious, just enlightening. Anyone running the fake variant of the module, knockoff Skylab had been pushing in queue and a trials, would hit a silent loop at midnight. All sandbox environments would halt. Dashboard logs would auto-populate with a message. This product was developed using stolen code authored by Abigail Rains. For the real Valkyrie protocol, contact. Licensing at Valkyrie, we pushed it to every node Skylab and Neon Catalyst had touched since Miranda's first attempt. By 12:01 a.m., my inbox was on fire. CEOs, CTO, lawyers, 3 venture capital firms, and one cryptic message from a government contractor who only wrote, "We should talk, soon." I leaned back, heart pounding but steady. Miranda had tried to trademark my future. Now her name would be legally bound to the single biggest corporate IP fraud case since the Ranos tried to sell blood magic in a box. And I wasn't finished yet. Because tomorrow, I was going back to Skylab, not as an employee, not as an engineer, but as the woman whose code they couldn't kill, no matter how many times they tried to bury it under someone else's name. I wore black, not for drama, for precision. Blazer, boots, hair tied back like I came to audit their souls. I walked through Skylab's front doors at 9:01 a.m., past reception, past the stunned security guard who blinked like he'd seen a ghost. Maybe he had. A week ago, they'd tried to delete me. Today, I held the deed to their backbone. I didn't ask for permission. I didn't sign in. I walked straight to conference room B, the same room Miranda had exiled me from 5 days earlier. The door was half open, board members already seated, tension clinging to the air like static. And at the head of the table, Miranda, pale, tight-lipped, dressed like she hadn't slept since the exposé. I stepped in without knocking. "Morning," I said. CFO rose halfway, like he might object, then sat back down. That's the thing about power. Once you've proven you can burn the place down, people stop asking for matches. Jared came in behind me. He nodded to the board, then slid a single folder across the table. Inside, verified commit logs. Timestamped Jenkins history. Legal correspondence with Neon Catalyst confirming Miranda's attempts to sell non-owned IP. Signed licensing agreement between Valkyrie Technologies and Skylab's largest client, who had already terminated their contract with Skylab and signed with me as of that morning. Miranda's face didn't change, but her hands, they trembled. "I didn't know," she said. Someone else must have known," I interrupted. "You knew. You took my work, put your name on it, tried to sell it twice, and filed a patent using a stolen blueprint. You have no proof I signed that patent." I smiled, pulling out my phone. Tapped play. Miranda's voice filled the room. Let her finish the module, then fire her. The elevator recording. Thank you, Lydia. The board was silent. One of the members, a woman I hadn't seen before, spoke finally. Miss Rains, what are you proposing? I turned to her. Calm, sharp, you're sitting on a burning platform. Your tech stack is broken, your contracts are bleeding, and your brand's a punchline. I paused, but Valkyrie isn't just a product. It's a lifeboat. You can buy access to it. Exclusive, with one condition. The CEO leaned forward. What's the condition? I looked directly at Miranda. She resigns today. No golden parachute, no consulting clause, and you issue a press release correcting the IP record naming me as sole creator. Silence. Then, without turning to her, the board chair said, Miranda, please leave the room. She stood slowly, eyes on me. No words, just a flicker, like she wanted to say something sharp, but couldn't find air to carry it. She walked out, and just like that, she was gone. 10 minutes later, the board signed the licensing deal. Full access to Valkyrie for 5 years. 7 figures clean. My name on every document, every line of code, every breath of it. When I walked out of that building, the sun was high and brutal. I passed Lydia at the front desk. She smiled, small and fierce. And as I stepped into the waiting car, my phone buzzed. Jared, we did it. I stared out the window, city flashing by like code compiling across glass. No, I texted back. I did it. They tried to fire me when I finished the module. I finished the company instead.